Hey guys, thanks so much for joining me today on this episode of DanamoBIM. Today on Python Tools for Revit, I have Marco Barboza, someone who I am super pleasured to be able to work with. He is just an amazing, fantastic coworker, and definitely helps me in many ways. One of most being Python. Now, I recently went to Marco because I wanted to be able to report some information about the model, in particular, project information.
Thankfully, I have my Dynamo already open. So we're gonna drop our Python node first, correct? I usually like renaming my nodes just like as my own personal best practice. Just immediately rename them, just append them with Python at the end, but just call this one project info, get project info or whatever. Just a little housekeeping here. I love doing so good. Let's see. There you go. This is what you encountered first. It does explain some pretty basic things, some of these libraries. This is the proto-geometry. That would be the geometry library that Dynamo uses on the back end. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete this entire code.
Okay, so none of that is useful to you.
Yeah, so none of that is useful for what I need. So for project information, I'm just going to write my little comment over here. This is the project information. And it's just like a header that I like just adding. This is
why do you use the three quotations rather than the hashtag?
Three quotations is usually for multi-line comments. So if you want to add, usually my own style right here is just to do this project info now and set info node and just say gets the project info now. So you can add multiple comments within your Python code. First things first, when it comes to coding anything in Dynamo with Python, we want to import our common language runtime. This is kind of the library that Python uses in the backend. Then what do we want to first start doing is adding our, this is going to be called the Revit services library. So the way we want to do that is we do the common language runtime CLR, and then use this method provided within that library called add reference. So Dynamo nicely now kind of auto-completes it for you. It used to not do that, but thankfully, thanks to the Dynamo guys, they added that feature, which is beautiful. So here you go. It auto-completes add reference, and we want to add the Revit services. Oops, Revit services library, which Dynamo uses underneath to, we use this one specifically. Oh, we use this one specifically to get a handle for the document itself. It's a very common one that you want to use in all your, be familiar with your, your Dynamo Python patterns. So then that line specifically just imports the library. What we want to do now is import the specific document manager. So that one lives under Revit services, which is the namespace that it's brought in by that library. And it's called persistence. So from persistence, from persistence, we want to import the document manager. So that this document manager is going to provide us with our Revit file. Next thing we want to do is bring over the Revit API itself, so that we can use our Revit types within our Python script in Dynamo. So we add the reference, the Revit API, and then we type from Autodesk. Oops. From Autodesk, Revit DB. There you go. Revit DB. Import. And here, there's some best practices that I like applying, because you can also just do this, and that's going to that little asterisk is going to import everything from the Revit API database to your script and make it available. It's fine, but it can lag the performance of your script, because it's just searching everything, bringing everything to your script, even if you're not using it or you don't need it. So, in order to avoid kind of logging at the performance of your script, we want to be as low weight as possible by just importing the things that we need. And we can go over it in a little. I'll leave it right there, but I'll change it as we add the things that we need. For this specific node, you want to start by, now we're going to start adding the actual components that we're going to use. So first of all, we're going to get our document. So I'm going to type a variable. It's going to store my document. And that's where I'm going to use my document manager that I previously imported right here. Let's see, document manager instance, and it's the current DB document. Correct. And you know how I said that I love just checking as I go to see, in order so that you can check that this is all working. I can just, that it's grabbing the document, it's grabbing, what you want. I can just output this and just test it out. I'm just going to save it real quick. And we'll just quickly run it. And there you go. There it is, my test project. That's the name of my file right now. So it worked. If you go to the Revit API docs.com and you go to the version of Revit I'm working on trying. So and then I go to the Autodesk Revit DB, correct? Like same as I import it right here. Then I can either document class right here. So you see that everything in Revit has its objects, and then they all have what are called properties or methods. Properties are properties just gives information like
data that it
name,
contains.
data, right? Like my name, your name is Dana, my name is Marco. Document methods are kind of actions that each object has. So the document can close itself, or it can delete something, or get something. So every object in Revit has that kind of case. So for this document title, I just knew, because I've been working with the API for a while, just knew that there's a title property right here. So I just go and look for it. It's called title property. It says. So this is just to explain what properties in the Revit API and methods were. So we are gonna get our project info object. That's what Dana wants to look into. So in here, we're gonna use a very common Dynamo Python pattern, which is the filtered element collector. So this is a very useful class provided by the Revit API that allows us to just query and grab all sorts of things from our document, from our Revit project. So that can be elements, data, you name it, right? Like elements means sheets, walls, whatever you want. It's just a good way to get the info that you need. So this is where I go into getting rid of this little asterisk, and we can start just importing the stuff that we need. So you can say filtered element. I'm going to use the filtered element collector. That's how I'm going to import it into my script. And I'm going to use it to collect my and my elements or my project info element right here. And I can also show it to you in the yeah. So if you go filtered element right here, filtered element collector, you'll see that it has constructors. Constructors are usually how you some objects you can just construct normally, meaning I can just do this and it'll just place the object fine. But there's some objects that require a little more information. In this case, the filtered element collector has different ways that you can instantiate them, but we're just gonna use the classic one that all it takes is a document. So it just requires you to give it a document. It's basically saying, give me the document you want me to search within. So that's what you're going to provide. And usually you can see right here in the syntax, it will tell you it takes a document parameter of type document. That was the class we previously looked at. That is the class that I'm kind of grabbing right here. It's the document. So I'm just going to add that to the constructor. And that's all it takes. Next, we're going to take a nice method that the filtered element collector uses called of category. So you can get things by their category. And if you open and expand the methods right here, you can see them. All the ones that the filtered element collector provides. So you can see of category right here. You have a class of category ID, and you can get creative with this. But for the time being, for what we needed, we're just going to use the of category, and we're going to input the built-in category, which is going to be, I'll show you that thing. So let's do that. So of category, and then it takes, like I said, built-in category project information. So how do I find the built-in category that I want? You go to the Revit API and I say built-in category enumeration. So the built-in enumeration is basically kind of like a baked-in list of options that a program has, so that you're not trying to guess. For example, you're not trying to guess what categories are built in that Revit's the Revit API is gonna provide for you. So it's gonna tell me, these are all the categories that exist within the Revit API. And as you can see, there are a ton. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look for my project information right here. Yeah, sometimes there's so many. I always just like doing find, and I do project information, project info. So project information. Right there. Sweet. So So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to copy this. And this is the OST project information that I'm looking for. I'm going to feed my of category, which I already saw in the API. It takes a built-in category. That's what and that's what I'm gonna give it. Now you see, if I run this, it's gonna fail because I thought I gave it the built-in category, but it's not. It's just like this is not defined because I am missing my built-in category class, my built-in category that contains my object style category. So built-in category, that's how I'm gonna import it. And then this object, the built-in category, is what contains all those categories that we just saw. So we're just gonna write it there, and there you go. At that point, in order to access it, and you can see how it has all these categories within it. And you can just pick whatever your heart is. In this case, we're going to go for project information. And if I save this and run it, oops, just going to do project info instead of. And there you go. You see that we are outputting the project info object from the Revit API. Now, this doesn't really help us much, especially not in Dynamo, because Dynamo cannot just grab this object right here and start working with it. It doesn't know what to do with it, so we have to do a little bit. So we're going to use this very handy method. Again, method is in action, right? That comes with, I believe it was the Revit services. Let's see. Services library is called toElements. So basically it grabs the element from the Revit API and turns it into something that Dynamo can work with. Right from there. So let's see if this is gonna work. Oh yeah, so it worked, like you see. So it changed from the Revit API object to an object that Dynamo recognizes you can use with that. So I always use this node right here, or type, in order to check my types coming out. I highly recommend it. So whenever you want to check, oh, that was my API, right? Let's do it again. Just remove this guy real quick. Let's run it. Oh, just gonna connect it to the object type right there. It's gonna say the same thing that the other saying. It's just gonna say it's DB project right now. I'm gonna repaste that again, run it again, and it's gonna change to Revit elements, unknown element. But still a Revit. It's still a Dynamo. That's a Dynamo. Because the Revit elements is a library that Dynamo uses in the background. In order to do a lot of kind of those type changes with programs. So let's see. All right, moving on. So now so as you can see, this is a list that is outputting right now with one object, which is this project. I don't want to use that object. I mean, I don't want to use that list. I want to just grab the object. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab that item. I'm just going to add the index 0 to it. And I'm just going to get rid of the list. And it's just going to use the object. This is going to help me just then access the project info object within my Python script. It's not gonna, otherwise I would be working on the list, and the list doesn't have the project, the list doesn't have properties or methods that the project info So project info lives within the list. I want to grab the project info and work with the project info that has all that information that I want, right? So I'm just gonna grab, then I'm just gonna grab the parameters for the project info, which is what I want to start looking at, right? So I'm just gonna name this variable project info parameters. Params or parameters are usually like using full words, but just for the sake of simplicity. And then to this variable, I'm just gonna hold my parameters. So I'm just gonna get my parameters from my project info object. So I'm gonna hit project info period, and you're gonna look for the parameters. Let's see, is there any parameters here? As you can see, all these like little purple ones are methods. And then the difference between accessing methods and properties are, a method is like this guy's within parentheses. So, is none would be accessed like this. A property would just be accessed in this way. So let's see, the parameters, I think they're just parameters. Last time I checked. We can also check that. And we can run it. So just save that. And there you go. We have our parameters. And it has, 36 parameters. And it gives you, if you check your types, they are all of type Revit API parameter. So if we repeat this step in like a simpler way, and we call it parameter list, params list, and we make it an empty list. And then we have to iterate over the parameters, like that list, long list of parameters that I was showing you. So we just go for parameter in project parameters column, and then we do a parameters list. So for each parameter, we want to add the name to our empty list. So this list right here. So we just want to add that name through, let's just start with the name, actually. And then I can show you how to add the value if you want. Or we can just output two different lists so that they are separated. So these are the names, and then these are the values. So that it's not as confusing. So we're going to add the params names. We're going to add the name, which, like we went over, we can go into the definition and grab the name. And then we also want to add the value to the other list. And we're going to do that. We grab that list. Then set it's like a native Python method for the adding elements to lists. And I believe the parameter has a parameter class, which is the objects we are looping over, has a method called as value string, and it'll just output whatever value it is.
So if it's an integer, it will report it out as a string regardless.
Everything, yeah, as a string. And as here you can see, it can do things as double, as element IDs, but we're just going to do it as a string, as value string. So if it's an integer, a number,
because all the object types are different.
Regardless, it's just going to do a string. So we'll side of that as parameter, as value string method. So whatever that method returns is going to be added to our parameter values list. So now what we can do is we can just output these two lists. And when we do that is we go to our out variable, we do parameter names, a little comma, and then parameter values. We save that, and we can check it right here and see. We save and run, and voila! It seems like it kind of do a little snafu. Look at it, but let's see. Let's do like a quick check. It outputs a list with the names of our parameters within a project info object, as well as the values contained within them. So see, you have booleans as well, yes and no's, and no, but it should be this not good. So this didn't fail. It's just this no was just yelling about nulls.
Information that couldn't be converted over to a string,
Right.
essentially.
Exactly. Or it's just this doesn't like the nulls, but this worked. This is not yelling. It's just outputting nulls. So that's essentially how you can separate those two, parameters and values, from your project info object. We want to do like a little recap. I feel like this is all the time we probably have, but so on this first portion, right, we grab our import our required libraries, right? Required libraries. In this case, we want the document manager that comes from Revit services, which is useful to get our document to the current document property. And then we also want to add our Revit API and whatever elements that we are going to use to access those, within our script. Like I said, we can always double check with the Revit API docs. And we grab our document, grab document, and then what we do is we use the collector in order to get the project info object from the document.
Like the project info or the project info element itself.
Element, the object that lives, that lives within Revit.
And it's element ID.
Yes. So that's what we do in this line. And we're just storing it in this little variable. Right? Variables are just somewhere that you can store an operation or a value that you can use later with the script. So you can name variables whatever you want. But like I said, best practice is just name something that you don't understand. So you don't want to go through 500 or you have thousands of lines and you're like, what is X? Right? And then you have to go all the way to the top and like see like, oh, X means this. And you lost so much time and it's just unreadable. So you want to name your variables, make it a habit to name your variables, something that you can understand, something that other people can understand. It'll make your life easier, especially with Python. But we can get to that conversation in another day. There's other languages that Python is very easy to read. There's other languages that require you to state what type your variable is first. For example, it would have to be like string this, and then we have all these things. But that's a different conversation for another day. This is Python, and it just makes it easy to use. So then just to recap, we just get the project info object with the filtered element collector. We feed the document to the collector because that's what it wanted. That's what it needs to kind of collect things from the document. We use the of category to tell it which category we want it to grab. So, all the elements from a category, and then it returns a list with the elements, which in this case is just one that exists within our document. So we use the two elements in order to convert that to a type that Dynamo understands, because it doesn't understand the Revit API, it works with its own thing. And we use the index just to grab the first item of that list. Pretty much. We can see how we can do that in like a series of chains, called chaining, series of methods chaining next to each other. Whatever this returns, I can operate with whatever this another method. So it's just one line instead of having to do multiple lines. Then we have the project info parameters. This is where we have, we grab the project, we get the parameters from the project info object. And then we create our lists of empty lists, and then what we do is we loop over our parameters to get their names, or parameter objects, because they are all objects. Remember, parameter objects to get their names and values. And then we add them to our empty lists above. And then we just output our lists. Right here. So in in summary, this is basically what we're doing. It's script right here.
Well, thank you so much, Marco. I am very, very grateful for you teaching us how to get project information from the current document.
Yeah, of course. No worries.
I'm sure I'll have you on another episode.
Of course.